At Five Star Bank, community is at the heart of what we do. Every day we strive to have thoughtful solutions for our customers and help our communities prosper. Honest dialogue about the issues affecting the region is vitally important to that prosperity. We are proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.
Our region celebrates its agricultural heritage and proclaims itself the farm-to-fork capital of the world. We live at the epicenter of the most fruitful land in California, and yet many of our neighbors go hungry. The stories of those who face food insecurity are profiled in a new documentary by Capital Public Radio called The View from Here: Hidden Hunger. This documentary exposes the surprising number of children and adults who are hungry or suffer from poor nutrition. Who exactly are the hungry among us, and what are we doing to eradicate hunger in a region where there is food all around us? Joining us are documentarian Catherine Stifter, Amaya Weiss, resource specialist at John Still K-8 School in South Sacramento, and Eileen Thomas, executive director of River City Food Bank. Catherine, who are the hungry?
You know, the hungry are all around us, and we might not know it. The hungry are people who cannot afford and don't have access to enough food or the right kinds of food to supply their nutrition needs. And in Sacramento, I was very surprised to learn that nearly 250,000 of our neighbors go hungry.
250,000?
220,000 people. Here's a statistic that's going to blow your mind. Every day, you can count on about 50,000 people who do not have the nutrition and the calories to do good work, to learn, and to be part of our society. It's really astounding.
Most of us think of the hungry as equating with the homeless themselves. This sounds like a much larger population.
So where I'm working at John Still, there's approximately 975 students there. 900 of them, maybe 950, are not homeless, and they're all hungry. We have food baskets that we give to our families. Our families know that they can come to the resource room and get bags of food. So I know that that myth about being homeless, that's not true. It's really about not having the socioeconomic means to purchase food or not having means to get food. And that's what the families in Meadowview face. They don't have access to a grocery store. The closest grocery stores are Bel Air and the Nugget, and they're rather expensive. It's hard for food stamps to go very far there.
And for food stamps, people believe that the food stamp program more than adequately gives an individual enough to be able to feed themselves adequately for a month. What's the reality of that, Eileen?
The reality is that $5 a day is pretty difficult.
$5 a day?
Mm-hmm, per person in your family.
So that's like a venti mocha at Starbucks.
That would shoot your wad, yes. So when you're looking at how you access not only food, but healthy food, you really have to struggle and stretch. And I've watched young families who, it's a full-time job just to figure out a menu that you can afford that is healthy.
And there are some terms that you all use. Food insecurity, food deserts, food swamps. What do these things mean?
Well, for food insecurity, it's our way of naming the hungry, but I suppose it's a softer way, but what it really is it's saying this number of people or these people don't really know where their next meal is coming from.
And a food desert and a food swamp, what is that?
Well, the food desert is a USDA term that designates an area where people are farther than a mile from a grocery store. And when you think about that, you know, any of us can get in our cars and drive a mile. It doesn't seem too bad. We throw the groceries in the back of the trunk. What if you don't have a car? What if you don't have the means to do that? You're walking to a grocery store at night because you take care of your kids during the day. So it's walking a mile, and maybe the transportation, the light rail is 2 stops instead of just straight to a grocery store. So the public transportation doesn't get you there. You don't have the personal transportation to do it. Food deserts designate areas where people just really don't have access.
And so what's a food swamp?
So John, speaking about the food desert, John still is in fact a food desert. We do not have a grocery store near us. The majority of my families do not have vehicles. So my families, when they want to go to Winco or Foodco, they have to take 2 buses to get there. That's 90 minutes. So it's 90 minutes to go to the grocery store, then pack up your groceries, and then bring them back on the bus with your children. And how do you carry all of the bags that you've just gotten? So quite frankly, it's not just a matter of going 3 miles to get to the grocery store. It's also the 90 minutes that it took to get you there. That's really only about 8 or 9 miles away, but you have to take 2 buses to get there.
So just for reference, all right, I grew up in that neighborhood and went to Freeport Elementary.
Yes, you did.
And so that the last grocery store closed down in like 1975. And so literally in order to go to anything other than a convenience store, my friends and I would have to ride our bikes all the way up Freeport Boulevard.
Correct.
To the Bel Air Market there, and then come back home for virtually everything.
For everything. And now my families go to Food Stop, and they go to the tire shop, and that's where they get their produce at.
The tire shop?
Correct.
The tire shop?
Correct, because it's a tire shop / grocery store where there's milk and bread and 50-cent bananas. So it's a very overpriced
Gouging.
area for them to go to, but it's the only place for them to go to.
So here's what I'm trying to understand, Catherine. We are billing ourselves as the farm to fork capital of the world. And we produce such an abundance of agriculture that we export everywhere. It's one of our primary economic engines in the state.
Absolutely.
And we can't even feed the people in our own backyard. Where are the barriers in the system? What's going on?
Boy, I wish I had the answer to that, and it would be a straight line to the solutions. And that's what's tricky about this whole subject, is that it's an interwoven story about social services that don't connect people to the resources that they need. It's a story about the recession and how it pounded people from the middle class into poverty, and the people who were already low income under the federal poverty guidelines got pushed even farther down. And when you think about the food that's available in our region and the farm to fork reputation that we're trying to brand for us, what we know is that everybody doesn't get a seat at the table, and that's the problem.
So, Amaya, put a face on hunger in this region. What if you can think of an individual, what are their struggles? What are their challenges?
So it is not uncommon for me to pull up to work and to have parents waiting outside my door to get food. That's very common. That happens at least twice a week. And usually it will be a grandma or a parent, and usually later on that day their children will come by, and I'll fill up their backpacks with food. I'll give them a different backpack so that they're not embarrassed to walk home carrying bags of food. But essentially...
And you do this in the school?
I do this in the school, at the school. That's my role. I provide services to the families that are in need, and at my school, food is a basic need that my families need. And so I collaborate with different partners, such as Capital Christian, and they bring me cans and cans of food. They also provide family night dinners where they feed 250 of our families for free once a month. And then when those families come, I give them food to leave with. I give them clothes to leave with. So really, our families have money in the very beginning of the month, the first 10 days of the month, and then things begin to get very tight. So months that have 30s in them, the long months, my families are struggling. Months like November, December, where the kids are going to be off for a week of school, that's no breakfast, that's no lunch, and that's no supper for every child that would normally be getting that at my school.
Now, do they also get at your school food from the guaranteed student lunch program?
Free and reduced lunch. And so that's what's so wonderful about John Still, one of the many wonderful things is the kids do come for breakfast. They get free breakfast. They do get lunch for free. And then also through our after school program, ACES, through Sacramento Chinese Community Center, they get a supper. But when break is on, that's over. So when Christmas is going, when we're on vacation and I'm thinking about where I'm going to spend my time, I know that my families don't have food. And so right now is the time to gear up and to start packing up food for my families, because they're going to go so long without it.
Can I just say that resource specialist, the job description, doesn't talk very much about supplying food to your families, does it?
It does not.
You're doing this above and beyond.
I feel that I'm trying to meet the families at where their needs are in order to make the children successful academically. And if they are hungry, then that in fact is a need that I can meet.
Eileen, what role does the River City Food Bank and other food banks play in sort of trying to plug the holes in the safety net that Amaya is describing?
Right, so we are busiest during the vacation periods, during the summer. And families are perhaps the most prone to hunger in our community. The fastest growing demographic, however, are our senior citizens.
Really?
That's right. So just see if you can wrap your head around the fact that every day for the next 6 years, 10,000 people will turn 65. And not all of them have been able to be providing for themselves, or as a result of the recession, their plans have changed. And we really, really are concerned about the increasing number of seniors who come who are in need of healthy food, and their health depends upon nutrition. So I think that families are incredibly important. Children can't learn without food, but we can't forget the other vulnerable people in our population who we must take care of.
A statistic which I'm looking for you all to confirm for me is that there are literally tens of thousands of people within this region who could sign up to receive food stamps who don't. Can you all help me understand that?
I can try to help you from a couple perspectives. The first perspective is access and understanding how to make that application. It is not easy. I have a college degree and I struggle with it.
The paperwork is
Yes.
horrible.
A lot of jumping through hoops. High level. It's not easy. No.
So that's in a way a barrier. And also many of those folks that you've talked about that are eligible live in communities without transportation where they can't get to the Department of Human Assistance to do that work. And they really need assistance with language. They need assistance with process. And then there are those, especially our seniors, who look at food stamps as a handout. And there's a great deal of pride, also pride in many of our minority folks who should be receiving benefits. And they are proud and they don't want to hand out.
So here, I'm a businessman, and if there are tens of thousands of people who could qualify for food stamps, and there's a sign-up process, and they could actually spend money, I don't understand why the major grocery chains aren't actually helping people to sign up, because it would grow their businesses. Can you guys explain that to me? Because if there was a way to grow the number of dollars spent in this region on grocery, and grocery stores and chains aren't doing that, that doesn't make any sense to me.
You know what you buy with food stamps? It's food. So if somebody's looking for a business opportunity, and we have a real gap between the numbers of people who are eligible and the numbers of people who have signed up, there seems to be an opportunity there, like you're talking about.
But to your awareness, there are no grocery stores or grocery chains, major chains, who are in the business of helping to sign people up so that they can actually buy stuff from them?
They are not doing the pre-screening for eligibility, to the best of my knowledge.
That's weird.
Well, it is, especially when you consider that for every $5 that a client or a person would spend in an EBT benefit, the community gets about $9.70 back.
Really?
So it really is a good win-win situation.
Let's get out of grocery stores and talk about farmers markets.
Yes.
There's a lot of discussion about farm to fork and eating healthier. Do these families have access to farmers markets?
In the past couple years, we have been able to get EBT benefits so that they can be spent at the farmers markets, and it's a huge success.
Really?
An absolute huge
Tell us
success.
about that.
So for a family that comes to River City Food Bank, they receive EBT benefits through the Department of Human Assistance. They go to the farmer's market, they give their card, they're given script, and then they're free to shop throughout the market with the script. And so I have to give a little plug for Alchemist, because they are the nonprofit that is helping that all happen. And also for the farmers and the farmer market management who are allowing those things to happen. It's a wonderful experience for children and families, and all of us love farmers
And that
markets.
provides a seat at the table to farmers
Right.
markets for people who know that they'd like to eat healthy food, they just haven't had access through the means that they have at their disposal.
Well-
And I don't feel that my families have access to farmers markets.
Not
The
in your
closest,
area.
it's not in my area. The closest farmers market is off of Mack Road. And again, we're asking our families to walk a really long ways. We're talking about it getting dark. We're talking about the crime rate in Meadowview. It's just not safe. It's not safe for my families to go walking to Mack Road with their families for a farmer's market.
Well, let's go even deeper than that. I was at a conference recently, and someone was touting Sacramento as the farm to fork capital of the world, and how we should all be eating healthier, and looking at Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign and all that kind of stuff. And a local pharmacist raised her hand and said something to the effect of, that is a very unrealistic perspective that everyone can eat farm to fork fresh. And as a matter of fact, given what public assistance is and what low-income mothers in particular have to deal with, you are trying to fill the bellies of your children. And in order to do that, you have to cook things that stretch. And things that stretch and that are inexpensive tend to be less healthy. And not to mention the whole issue of transportation and proximity and things like that. Do you have any reaction to that?
I do, because I feel that it's not that my families don't want to eat mangoes and kiwis and be eating fresh fruits and vegetables. One, that's an education piece that's missing. They have not been educated about healthy eating. And then secondly, the access isn't there. So we have just built a garden at John Still. So we're having a community garden, and I do see the power in that, of our families beginning to learn how to farm to fork there. That's exciting, but it's not feeding 975 mouths right now. And so to me, I want the farmer's market in my backyard. I want it at John Still, where there are 1,000 students every day, for their families, for their grandparents.
And we're hearing about stories in our documentary where community food advocates are thinking about planting citrus trees around the parks so that there'll be citrus right there where people congregate. The community garden movement is growing by leaps and bounds. I know about a garden that's behind a church that's part of our story, one that's at a community center, home gardens where people are sharing their food to the food banks and coming to receive other things that they're not able to grow themselves. So this idea of farm to fork could trickle down. And the other thing is, Eileen, at the end of her email, she has this wonderful quote that says, "Don't eat anything that your grandmother wouldn't recognize as food." And part of what we've lost here is through the generations. We've lost a connection to just what food is and what food can do. And so as people have, lost that generational connection and understanding of how to cook, how to shop, how to eat well, we find ourselves in a situation where people just need the education.
Well, you actually touched on something that I'm curious about, which is, even if you have the food, it's assumed that you've got the area to prepare food.
Sure.
And to prepare meals and to have the meal. Is that assumption valid?
No,
Absolutely not.
it's really not. And what's hard,
Wow, I guess I touched a
It
nerve
is
there.
absolutely not
Okay.
true.
it's so hard for us to, I'm speaking about being a middle-class person who was raised in a rural area. I can my own tomato sauce. I'm really into food. I love it. And in my area, I have access to all that. What I assume is that what I have access to must be accessible to everybody in my community. And what I'm finding smacking me in my face is it's just not true. And Amaya has a great story about this.
I really do. So when I first came to John Still, I was getting donations of frozen turkeys. So we provide Thanksgiving dinners for our families. So I felt great about this donation, this big frozen turkey. I came to the door to one of my parents' house, Tallis. I went to the door, brought in this frozen turkey, and then came to realize there was no oven.
No oven.
No oven. So here I felt like I was, ta-da! No oven. Dun, dun, dun. I mean, nothing to get the food warm. And so I've never forgot that. I've tucked it away. And now I make no assumptions and I bring rotisserie chicken sometimes instead of frozen turkey so that I don't embarrass myself, embarrass them, make something that's could be really beautiful, awkward. But yes, assumptions, it's just not the case. People don't necessarily have working ovens. People don't necessarily have huge refrigerators. People don't necessarily have more than one pot. My students sometimes share toothbrushes, so there's just no assumptions.
Wow. And so does that actually affect the type of food that you receive and that what you give away and how you package it?
Absolutely. We have what we call a choice food bank so that people can go through and choose what they're able to eat, what they like to eat, what's their culture to eat, and keeping in mind how they prepare for it. We do serve people throughout the community who don't have homes, and we try not to refer to folks as homeless. We say, are you between addresses? And that helps with the idea of dignity and respect. And I think that goes back to what Amaya was saying, is that as we try to provide healthy food and resources for the families and the people that we serve, that we need to do this with dignity and respect in all aspects and ways that we work.
Who is responsible for this issue in this region? Because again, let's deal with assumptions. My assumption would be is that there is some local government agency that is in charge of making sure that people don't go hungry. Who's in charge?
I've been looking at this as a documentarian for about the last 6 months. I've looked at some of the studies and surveys that have happened in our own county. It's not so much a question of who's in charge. It's a question of where are the resources and how can we connect people with them, because there's not a one-stop shop for ending hunger. I wish there was. There are food banks and schools, churches, individuals. I know of a woman who is an IHSS home worker who, just because she feels and sees the need, makes 100 sandwiches and stands on the corner and hands them out.
Really?
So who's responsible for it? We all are.
We all are. I really feel that the more you know, the more responsible you become. And so when we talk about this, all of us, we become more responsible. We as citizens that have more should share with those that have less, particularly children. I have children of my own, and I see children that are hungry every day. Every single day at my job, I see children that are hungry. And I do feel that it's all of our responsibility.
What do you do when you come to the end of the food that you've got at the school and there's still hungry kids?
I don't accept that. I don't.
Well, what do you do?
I keep asking for food. I don't ever get so far behind that I would have nothing. I keep asking. I would keep asking. I just would keep asking.
Where do you get it from?
I get a lot of food from Capital Christian Center. They come with huge trucks and back up and give me food. They give me $1,000 worth of gift cards to Bel Air, so I'll save those for our homeless families. I've had 7 deaths this year, so we will bring bereavement baskets with food. I rely on churches because that's where I feel comfortable asking, and that's what's delivered for me. But I maybe have about 7 cans of food in my bin right now, but I know more food's coming down the bend. I know that Capital Christian's going to deliver food before Thanksgiving.
Do you ever run out?
There are days when we have given out all of what we call the good stuff. So the fresh fruits and vegetables are gone by 1 o'clock, and we still have more people to serve. It's most disheartening because for us, we serve all of Sacramento County, and it's really difficult to get that amount of food in, store it, and get it out while it's still fresh. So there are lots of logistics that go into food banking. That River City is a relatively small food bank, but we serve many, many people. So it's typically food in, food out. And there are days when I look at the trucks going out and the trucks coming in thinking, I hope there's enough, I hope there's enough.
And we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you. And that's our show. Thanks to our guests, and thanks to you for watching Studio Sacramento. I'm Scott Syfax. See you next time right here on KVIE.
At Five Star Bank, community is at the heart of what we do. Every day we strive to have thoughtful solutions for our customers and help our communities prosper. Honest dialogue about the issues affecting the region is vitally important to that prosperity. We are proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.
All episodes of Studio Sacramento, along with other KVIE programs, are available to watch online at kvie.org/video.